Cozza, very good morning to you.
Morning, Benny.
You've travelled more miles than the Leyland brothers over the weekend. I saw you in Canberra on Saturday. Last night you're in the Fox studios talking through all the action of the Sunday games. And now you're sitting here in Fortitude Valley with us. Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, it's been quite the weekend. Quite the weekend of football, to be fair. I mean, we started with the Broncos, who needed to get a victory against the South Sydney Rabbitohs, and they were able to do that. We'll dive into that game soon, but and finished yesterday with the turnaround from the Dolphins against the Dragons, who the week before were superb. So 38 points to 0 for the Dolphins at home, and so it's quite the game.
I didn't want to dig up the audio of you on Fox before that game saying it's Dragons all the way because I didn't want to embarrass you, but I've just brought it.
No, that's fine. Look, hey, more than happy to put my hand up. I got it wrong. Look, I was just going on the evidence that I saw from the week before, and I think I wouldn't have been alone if I tipped the Dragons. But full credit to Wayne. Obviously, Wayne sprinkled his magic dust and had some harsh words to his team because what they bled last year, their DNA and what they stood for, they just didn't have any of it in that first game. They showed up yesterday, and I think Jesse Bromwich made the comment, it was just an attitude adjustment. They just wanted it, and they went after the game. And some of the unlikely heralded stars, Max Plath, Kurt Donahue, these players that just put their hands up. And a lot of people in the NRL world wouldn't have seen these players play, and they played long minutes out of the position. There was a couple of HIAs that had adversity, etc., and they got the job done.
Yeah, plenty to sink our teeth into across the next hour. 13-13-55. The Alltel open line is there for you. It is your direct line to Corey Parker this morning. Text through as well. Corey will do his best to answer all your questions. Let's kick off with Revenge Week, Corey. It is the Broncos and Penrith this Thursday night. It's the grand final rematch. The Broncos have been waiting since the first week of October for this match. But now, can they get the job done with no Adam Reynolds and quite possibly no Payne Haas?
Well, the short answer to that is yes. They can get the job done. It's going to be a tough ask because you've just mentioned no Adam Reynolds, potentially no Payne Haas. I spoke to the physios on Thursday night. He's got some severe patella pain, so that's the kneecap. And to be fair, he just needs some time off. So I would expect, being round 2 and a long season ahead, that Payne probably won't play. But it's next man up mentality. There's no reason why they can't go on and get the job done. They've still got strike right across the park. In saying that, the Penrith Panthers have got their own woes. No James Fisher-Harris, which is a huge omission for them. He's obviously their heartbeat and their enforcer for what they do. They've got some quality players. The reality of it is both teams, both the Broncos and the Penrith Panthers, will need to be better. I mean, the Broncos got a win last week against the South Sydney Rabbitohs, but in that first half, they had 9 errors. They weren't happy with the way things went there. They tidied up in the second half, and they got away with what needed to be a very good victory. But between both those teams, South and Brisbane, there was 30 errors.
It was a bludger.
It was exciting at different points, but if you're looking at it from high-class quality as opposed to something like we watched yesterday, that being the Roosters in Manly, certainly didn't fit that ilk. So the Broncos will have to be better. They got a win, which was great. I thought Mariner was superb. I thought Cobbo was very good. Carrigan and Payne Haas in the middle again. So there's no reason why they can't go to the foot of the mountain. They did it last year. Adam Reynolds and Payne Haas did play. But it's going to be a tough ask. It's a tough road trip to go to the foot of the mountains, let alone coming up against 3-time premiers.
Who's the bigger loss? Payne Haas, if he doesn't play?
Yeah.
Or James Fisher-Harris for Penrith?
Oh, that's a good one.
Who suffers the most?
Well, I think just having the fact that Tom Flegler's not part of the team this year, and I thought we saw when Pirakura got HIA again over there in Vegas and Paddy had to go out to an edge, they really lost that punch through the middle. So I'm going to say Payne Haas is a bigger loss over Fisher-Harris. Just for what they bring to each other's side, not taking anything away from Fisher-Harris. We're talking about two of the elite props in the game. But I think Payne Haas for Brisbane, what he's able to do, long minutes, heavy lifting, etc., the 1-2 Haas-Carrigan punch. So we'll wait and see. That call hasn't been made yet, but I expect it to be.
Yeah, we'll get an update in about an hour's time from Red Hill to see how they are training. The word out of the Broncos bunker is Payne Haas was going to be given today off. We wouldn't see him at training if that's the only rest he needs heading into Thursday. 13 55 0467 736 736. Do you agree with Corey Parker? Is Payne Haas a bigger loss than James Fisher-Harris is for Penrith? Because no Tom Flegler.
Yeah.
I think we've said it for, I reckon since October 2.
Yep.
They knew this was coming.
Mm-hmm.
And to play devil's advocate, we can't, and the Broncos can't, and Broncos fans can't keep saying, but no Tom Flegler. They knew there was no Tom Flegler. They've had all off-season to get ready for this and get right for this.
That's right. No Tom Flegler.
Yeah. So did they need to stop using that as an excuse and have your Corey Jensen, have your Marty
absolutely, because you can't
Wilson.
all of a sudden make people appear. But not only Tom Flegler, you've got Farnworth, you've got Palissy, you've got Capewell. So, it's not an excuse. It isn't. It is what it is right now, and they look right that squarely in the face. I thought Jensen was strong the other night. Xavier Willison, who I've spoken glowingly about, hasn't got an opportunity yet. That may come. That may come now that Payne's not going to play. Does Marty Tapu hold his spot? So they've got great depth in those certain areas. Whilst there is no Tom Flegler, you've got the opportunity for somebody like a Xavier Willison to stand up. So there's always an opportunity for anyone in whoever wants to come in. And that's why I was saying that next man mentality. You hear it so often, but one door opens, another door closes, or vice versa.
Some individual brilliance got the Broncos across the line on a couple of stages. I mean, Reece Walsh was outstanding.
Yeah, he was. He was the point of difference because, as we just mentioned, 30 errors between both teams. I don't think South could have done anything worse. They did everything possible you could probably think of. The only thing they didn't do was kick the ball dead off a kickoff. They did it in the field of play. But, the difference was Reece Walsh. He was able to come up with a scintillating try back through the middle, found some fatigue, and just create. I thought Cobbo. I thought he was very good in his move to centres. And just watch that space, to be honest, because whilst they've loaded up on Payne Haas, Pat Carrigan, and rightly so, Ezra Mam, and also Reece Walsh, well, Cobbo's off contract this year, so expect a host of clubs lining up to try and get his signature.
Selwyn, he picked up 3 Dally M votes. Reece Walsh, 5. Paddy Carrigan, 3. Brendan Piakura, 1. No Souths picking up any Dally M votes. And we'll get into Dally M votes over this hour as well, because I'm still scratching my head how Teddy didn't get any down at Brookvale yesterday. Steve is on the sunny coast. We'll get to Steve in just a moment because he wants to talk Xavier Coates. I want to get your thoughts on that. But before we get into the Xavier Coates try, which was outstanding, it was one of the highlights that we will see not only this year but for years to come. One of the lowlights out of the round, and I don't want to dwell on this, but it is a big talking point, and to me it kind of puts it in perspective where Souths are at. Latrell Mitchell, after the game, this was him speaking on radio on Triple M.
Mate, it looked like here comes South, but it just got away from you.
It's all right, mate. Look, honestly, it was in the first bit, just a hard game. We showed what we were about, and honestly, they're big boys. They're competitors. No wonder why they come, runner-up last year. So building on that, I don't care if I'm swearing, boys, honestly. But I'm very happy. Scored 100 tries, so there's something to celebrate there. That was my 100th. So
well done.
Yeah, everyone. But anyways.
And pretty much right then is when that was pulled off air. The beeps. He dropping F-bombs throughout the middle of an interview. Maybe one gets slipped up and you apologise, but to actually acknowledge the fact that, sorry, I'm swearing, don't care.
Yep.
Really?
Obviously, everyone's got an opinion on this, Benny, and as do I. Highly, highly inappropriate from what we saw from one of the game's leading players. There's a code of conduct that he didn't adhere to. The common decency when talking live on a radio that was just completely ignored, and the professionalism that just quite simply wasn't there. To acknowledge that you were swearing and then to have the ignorance or arrogance to then continue to swear, I feel is highly inappropriate. And something needs to be done. This can't be the norm, and it's not the norm. And we have seen in the past players accidentally 100% slip up.
Yep.
And they are straight away remorseful, apologise, very sorry. They don't then acknowledge it and continue. Now, it doesn't matter who you are. This instance, it's Latrell Mitchell, one of the leading players of our game. Now, there's word that Andrew Abdo is looking to have a meeting with Latrell Mitchell, which I don't know what that is for. Because if that was Matthew Lodge, for example, having that conversation, is Andrew Abdo having the same meeting with Matthew Lodge that he is with Latrell Mitchell? Like, we need some standards across, and there is standards, but it seems as though that some rules apply to some and some rules apply to others.
Could that meeting be checking on his welfare? Because that's everything you've just outlined.
Let's go back
Acknowledging
a week. Let's go back a week.
Yeah.
The Spencer Leniu incident. Latrell was vocal all week. And he must be above the rules because no current player is allowed to make comment when there's a judicial hearing about to happen, which he did, and that went unpunished also. So, again, it doesn't matter who the player is. At this instance, it's just been Latrell in two instances. But to get back to the original, what we just touched on, completely and highly inappropriate.
Yeah.
I don't know which way else to put it.
No, it's not. There is no other place and way to put it. But for Andrew Abdo to have a meeting with him, I mean, yes, he may read the right rules to him, but is it also? And this is, I'm critically thinking here, trying to where's that come from?
Well,
is there a concern about where his head's at? If he acknowledges, no, it's wrong. Would it be a welfare check?
Well, I mean,
and it's not an excuse. It's just mate, are you okay?
I mean, well, that aside, I just stick purely within the parameters of what we just touched on. For Andrew Abdo to call a meeting, I don't know what that's for. Highly inappropriate, code of conduct, common decency, professionalism, whichever way you want to frame it up. If it was another player, I don't care who the player is, if it was done by a current player that is playing the game. If you and I, we work in the media, were to go on a tirade like that, well, we understand what the next situation is going to be.
Exactly. Don't come Monday. Don't come tomorrow. You're not around.
Yeah.
13 13 55 0467 736 736. Corey's quite clear on it. I think you would be too. I guess now the punishment handed down to Latrell Mitchell. Is there one coming? What should it be? Fine sufficient? I don't know. What do fines do? 13 13 55 0467 736 736. The Alltel open line is there for you. That was sadly one of the lowlights coming out of round two. We are going to talk highlights straight after this break. Steve, we'll get to you. Text callers as well on Xavier Coates. Have you seen a better try? SENQ, we're off and running in Revenge Week here at the Home of Sport. Well, I'll tell you what, it was the Dolphins giving the Dragons hell yesterday after Wayne Bennett gave his team a week of hell. We can only imagine. Well, we know there were 5 changes to the Dolphins lineup in the end because he gave Kenny Bromwich the tap on the shoulder at training on Saturday and brought in young Kurt Donahue, who Corey was, again, one of the standouts. I mean, that entire Dolphins team was pretty bloody good considering they lose their number 6 to an HIA in the first half. Jeremy Marshall-King.
The greatest Falcon you will ever see. Ever see. If that is not on a highlights reel for years to come, I mean...
Have you ever been hit in the head by a ball like that from a kick?
Not like that. I mean, JMK...
No one likes it.
JMK left the field and he come back on, he scored a try, but... Oh, my goodness. I was in fits of laughter watching that. The slow-mo of it all, watching Ben Hunt look at him, and he looked like a cartoon character, but you shouldn't laugh, but it was pretty funny.
The fact he came back on, scored a try, but the hammer, it was a 3-try performance by him. And the ones he saved too, like that's a big part of it.
Well, Hammer's a barometer, isn't he, for what the Dolphins, and we spoke on this show last week in Hammer and how quiet he was, against a team where he needed to aim up, and they had the rocket put under him. Wayne had pretty much read the riot act. He dropped his 7. And so a halfback out of your team getting dropped out of the team, and also the centre. I thought Katoa was exceptional. Still just a 20-year-old kid, although his kicking game was great. But you could just see there was a notable change. They were upbeat, up-tempo. They completed at a high rate. They were 17 from 19 in both halves, gave themselves every opportunity because at that point the Dragons weren't doing too much wrong, but the Dolphins were just wanting every contest more than the Dragons. And off the back of that, when you lose your 6, when you lose your 9, it throws a spanner right into the works. But, aside from, what Hammer was doing, blokes like Max Plath, who was a starting back rower for him, Josh Kerr that come off and did come on from the bench and did a great job. Donahue, these players that, and I say this respectfully, there comes a time when you play in the NRL where you then feel accepted and you can feel comfortable. I've got no doubt after yesterday's performance, those two individuals, Donahue and also Plath, would feel comfortable now and think, you know what? I belong here. I can actually add something here. I'm not just a name on the sheet and helping out. I can actually contribute. And they had a lot of those guys, and collectively, they need that. The Dolphins. Collectively as a group, I thought they were great.
It's a really interesting point you make because when you're being brought into a team as a young fella, do I belong here? Those questions that have to go through your head. Actually, I remember Matt Rogers making and it's a little bit left field here, but Matt Rogers said, you when you hit about 60 NRL games, you're an NRL player. Mm-hmm. Until then, you're just someone who plays in the NRL.
Yeah, well...
And I thought, wow, I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, I agree with him to some degree. Yeah, absolutely. Because after 60, you've played a couple of years and you understand what it takes year in, week out, etc.
I'm pretty sure 60 was the number.
Yeah, that'd be right. But for those guys, they still need affirmation that they've got what it takes to play. And they were big contributors to what they did yesterday. I thought they were great.
All right, I do want to play some of the Supercoach post-match. He was asked about his coaching. He was asked about the changes he made. This was his response.
I just coach them. I don't have all those answers, Joe. I don't know. You'd have to ask them. We didn't change a lot, and the performances are so different.
Obviously asked about what he did between the 2 weeks. And I mean, is that Wayne Bennett being humble? Is that Wayne Bennett trying to take
It's interesting, right, with the media and what people perceive. That's what Wayne would have done. I don't know. You have to ask them. He wouldn't have done anything too different. What he would have done, though, is drop the 7, drop the 4, and read a couple of stern messages to the team in regards to their performance and what he wants from them. Less is more from Wayne. I've been in dressing rooms before and he hasn't said much at all. Very, very little. And sometimes that's all you need. He understands how to get the best out of his players. Coaching technically is a different ball game. That's what Christian Wolf and Nathan Fien are there for. But when you're trying to get the best out of your players from a performance point of view, that's where Wayne's very good. I remember we were playing a prelim final in 2006, and we were 24 points down to the Bulldogs at half time. And the only thing Wayne Bennett said at half time is, well, we've got 2 things we can do. We can watch the season go, or we can go out there and play like the Broncos. That was it. That was all he said at half time. We went out there, we'd come back with a miraculous victory against the Dogs. We went to play Melbourne in the grand final the following week, and we won that. So sometimes less is more. But he would have absolutely read the riot act in regards to what they stood for.
13 13 55 0467 736 736. The Dolphins 38-0 against the Dragons. It was the first time they'd ever shut a team out in their short history, obviously just 12 months. Their highest ever score, Hammer with a hat trick and two try savers along the way. I do want to talk about the Cowboys and their Golden Point win over the Knights. Saturday in Townsville, Corey, they didn't lead at all this match, the Cowboys, until
the 81st minute, Benny. It was an incredible match because whilst at the moment, it goes down as a win. And you've got to win all certain different ways when you play rugby league. Some days it's all going to run your way and you're going to put a good score on a team. Other days you're going to be gritty. Other days you're going to have a bludger of a day and find a way to win. And that was similar to what the Cowboys did. They were 12-0 down. They didn't look even into it. They had 12 errors in the first half. Yeah. Like every team at the moment that completes high and has more ball possession generally wins the game. I mean, the Raiders are on top of the ladder at the moment, and that's what they've done so well in the last two rounds. And the Cowboys were doing that. The second half, they had some individuals that really stood up. I thought Tommy did, and the captaincy's really sitting well with him. I thought he was inspirational, but they just simply held the ball more, than they did in the first half. They didn't make as many errors, and they've got strike right across the park. Val Holmes had an unhappy night from his standard. He's very, very good, Val Holmes. He had a couple of loose carries and a couple of wayward kicks, but they just found a way. They found a way to stay in it. You could probably have the argument that Newcastle couldn't close the game out. Kalen Ponga come up with a real crucial error later in the latter part of that game. But you find a way to win. At the end of the season, a W's a W. You forget about round two when we just got home against the Newcastle Knights when you got a W next to your name at the end.
This is the Monday Means Test with Corey Parker running the rule over it. We thought the Cowboys, they were the real deal after round one, running it on the fifth, 5 tries like that against the Dolphins, and they were lucky to hold on to it for five tackles at home, to be fair as well. Tommy Dearden running like a front rower as well, running the ball, which was great. But yes, the W is what counts, 13 13 55 0467 736 736.